There we are. We're live.
Now we're live. Hello. So I'm Melissa Mann, and I have the beautiful, amazing Heather Nichols here with me. And we wanted to come in here and just kind of have a fun conversation about money and creation and all the things that is, and kind of like end of the year, where are we all at with COVID and all the things that have created something different in our world right now, and kind of just wanted to talk about like all of that creation and money, and kind of like the difference that we be with money. And that's something that I've been looking a lot at lately, and something Heather and I have been talking a lot about lately is sort of what difference are we with money. So Heather, I guess, kind of to start off, something I've learned so much from Heather is just the difference that she is with money and creation and business, and just like this different energy than anybody I've ever worked with before, of just like this like space of like what else is possible when it comes to money, and how like money kind of just like flows in such a different way. So I wondered if you could maybe talk a little bit about that, Heather, just kind of that like the difference that you be with money, and then like for the rest of us, like how do we kind of pull into like the difference that we be, because what works and what for you might not be the thing that works for me or the thing that works for somebody else, when how we pull money into our world. Does that make sense?
Totally. That's funny. Yeah, I'm just reading the comments. I just realized you can't see the comments. But
no, I can't.
Hi, everybody. We're actually streaming to 3 different places. We're streaming to my page. We're streaming to Melissa's money group on Facebook. And we're also streaming to YouTube. So how cool is that? This is a first for me. So
and how does it get any better?
I know, totally. So yeah, it's so funny because I mean, I'm just really infinitely grateful for Access Consciousness and the Access Consciousness tools, and the Access Consciousness money tools. When I started doing Access, which was 10 years ago, I was a single mom. There was a lot of things that I was asking for, desiring in my life, but I didn't really know how to create, and I had other tools, but I didn't. The thing that I love about the tools of Access is they're so pragmatic. They work and they make sense, and it just seems like, yeah, okay, this is a good thing to do, And so I started using them right away. I read the book, Money Isn't the Problem, You Are, which
that was my first book too.
It's such a good book. It started to unlock so much for me. And just to see, wow, okay, so if I'm not wrong, but I also can recognize that whatever is occurring with money in my world is something that I'm choosing, then if I recognize that I'm choosing limitation, then I could also be choosing possibility and choosing something different, So that was a really cool, like.
Yeah. Well, and I love that, because there's so much to that of like choice, and how much we actually limit ourselves with money, which is something I think I'm really just getting. It's like all the ways that I thought I was wrong with money, and like that I was actually like the source. Like Heather has this amazing 30-day program going on right now called Being the Source. And even more like through that, I'm getting that like, oh, like I can choose something different when money isn't showing up the way I'd like it to. And like, what choices can I make to like actually change my reality with money?
Totally. Yeah. And, one of the things that we do, a lot of people that are drawn to these different conversations and tools of access tend to judge ourselves a lot, right? It's one of the things that you realize, like, because we talk a lot about judgment and access, and we internalize judgment, we make it most things about ourselves. And one of the things that I've realized so much over the years is that I am so different with money that I couldn't actually look in the world and see anybody who functions the way that I do with it. And that's probably true for a lot of us. And then what happens is the sort of next step is you go to the wrongness of you. You know, it's like my dad was wrong, you know.
We do that, I think, gosh, with everything, but it's so true with money because we make money so significant of like, if I'm not like everybody else, then I must be wrong. And then you add money into it and it's like, oh, but I need this to survive. And so now I'm really wrong because I don't know how to make the money show up.
Totally. And, you know, judgment is the biggest killer of creation. So when you go to judge, like when things are different or not showing up the way that you want them to or whatever, and you go to, you go to judgment of you totally kill creation. You kill everything that is possible, everything that's available. So it's really interesting because the thing is like, we have this question that is, what's right about me that I'm not getting, right? And it's this really cool, because so much of what hides underneath your judgments of you is actually your brilliance, but it's different than what you see in the world. So we make it wrong and we judge it.
Yeah. So you have like coming up, I think in between Christmas and New Year's, this class, unlocking your capacities. It's like 5 days of creation, unlocking your capacities with money. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about like what that actually means, like to unlock like your capacity with money? And like, I'm kind of getting that it's like that difference that you be. So what, but like, what is that like for you? And like, you know, what tools can we use to like unlock our capacity with money?
Yeah, well, I would say the very first thing is recognize that everywhere that you think that you're messed up with money, or that you can't get it right, or that you've gotten it wrong, or you know, any judgments that you have with it, and of you in regards to it, there's gonna be a capacity underneath that. So I always say, like, in a way, like your judgments of you and the wrongness of you is actually an indicator of where your brilliance lies. And one of the things that, this is also kind of an X-Men conversation. So that's also a part of the Access Consciousness body work that I also facilitate, which is really looking at everywhere that you think you're disabled, you're actually very brilliantly abled, you know. So flipping judgments on their head, where you're like, oh, I actually have capacities here, but the world would have me believe that I'm wrong, you know?
Yeah.
So starting to look at every single place where you're like, I'm stuck with money here, I'm bad with money here, I can't do money here, you know, every one of those judgments, then it's like, okay, hold on a second, stop, lower your barriers. This is a great tool. Lower your barriers. Like, just imagine that you could push your barriers down. It's your mind is basically your biggest barrier. So whatever you can do to just lower your barriers and get vulnerable with you and go, okay, if I wasn't actually wrong here, if this wasn't about the wrongness of me, what would the capacity here be? What would actually be possible with this? Now, that's not a question you're going to be able to answer right off the bat, but when we ask questions, we invite the universe to give us a different awareness of something.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. Mm-hmm. I love that question. And I think something that, you know, people who are a little bit newer to Access, or, you know, kind of go to like, well, I asked a question, I'm looking for an answer, you know, and sort of to get that, like, you don't actually have to have an answer. And it doesn't, when you're asking questions, you're just opening up and unlocking the like possibility, rather than needing to go back into your head and find the answer.
Yes, very much so. You're just inviting, and questions become this kind of ongoing conversation with the universe, in a way of like, hey, show me something different here, you know. And then things drop into your world. And there are things that have dropped into my world recently that have been things that I have asked for years, you know. So sometimes you get the awareness that night or the next day, sometimes the next week or the next month, but sometimes it's a year later or 2 years later. We're always creating a future when we're asking questions, and opening up these spaces. And I would say, like, I want to say something, because a lot of people, with, like, I hear this a lot from people where they're like, you're so brilliant with money, you're so good with money, you have such a capacity with money. And it's funny because I actually don't think that. Like, and I say this because I want you guys to get that. I mean, what would it take for y'all to not judge you the way I judged me? But there is that. It's not like for me, it's not like I've gotten to this point where I'm like, I'm brilliant with money and it just flows all over me all the time. I mean,
it's an amazing visual.
And what's funny is we have these projections of how it is to be great with money and to have a different money reality. And I mean, I have a very different money reality than I did 10 years ago when I started Access. And I do have a lot of money in my life, but it's still never enough for me. I'm still like, okay, that's great. I'd like a millionfold more.
More, please.
Yeah. And people tend to, I mean, that's part of the brilliance of us, is that we're like more.
Yeah.
And we're told that that's wrong. It's not. It's like one of your greatest brilliance areas of brilliance is the willingness to ask for more. But it's gonna always, like, there can be this kind of rub there where you're like, well, because it hasn't shown up, I must be wrong, and just let it, like, go easy with yourself, like,
just that, like, relaxing into it.
Yeah. And what would it take for all of us to get out of judgment of, I mean, I'm asking this for myself.
Yeah, same. Yeah, but isn't that true? Because we, even in like the How to Become Money workbook, it says, you asked for $1 million and it didn't show up tomorrow. And so now you've decided it's not going to show up, and now you shut off receiving. So now even if it was going to show up, now it can't, because you've decided, well, that didn't work in 24 hours. I'm done.
Yeah. Or it shows up in a way that you don't realize, I mean, like, I've created well over $1 million with my Access business. But it doesn't feel like I thought it would. You know what I mean? It's like, when I realized that, I looked at the numbers and I was like, oh, well, that's cool. Like, I was like, oh, I guess I mean, I don't even know what a millionaire is. You know what I mean? But because what is a millionaire? Who defines what a millionaire?
Right. Yeah. $1 million. That's all I got.
Right. I mean, and so it's sort of a random thing. And people make
this. So you're like, oh, I've done this already.
But it's also like, but there's always more, And what if always more was like, what if we could embrace that and celebrate that and enjoy that and have fun with it and be like, oh, I might be in a temporary little dry spell with money, or there might be a slump, and I know for me, like, when my money ebbs and flows, like, if I'm in an ebb period, I judge the fuck out of myself, and I'm like, oh, what am I doing? What am I not being? What am I, rather than going, okay, let's look at, like, this is just how, like, money does ebb and flow, and it's okay. Like,
well, and like, kind of that question of like, if this wasn't a problem, what possibility could this be?
Totally.
So like, when we have like a low point, or what feels like a low point in money, to be like, okay, well, maybe this is a possibility for me to create something greater, or to change something that would create like a whole different energy in business, or in any way that we create money.
Yeah.
But that's something that I've really like questioned a lot. Like, okay, well, like, this like shitty thing happened, but like, where I've judged that, but been like, okay, well, what possibility is this? Or how did it show me that something needed to change in a way that would create something so much bigger and so much like exponentialize, where like, if everything was sort of going along smoothly, but it couldn't get bigger or greater, that like, when something goes kind of like, that's kind of when I've had this opportunity to be like, okay, well, how can I create even greater now?
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, like I couldn't even begin to say the quote about satisfaction is like I don't remember what.
I don't know.
When we like satisfaction can be sort of the death of creation. Okay, I'm going to make up a new quote.
Oh, I like that. Satisfaction is the death of creation.
if you do get satisfied with where you are, then it's sort of like this, it gets very boring, and there's this sort like, and sometimes we need to switch things up. We need to mix things up. We need to, in order to actually choose something greater. And I've seen that for me where it's like, oh man, I was getting too comfortable there. And now everything changed and boom, it's time. And a lot of times when I have a huge jump in money flows, right before is this sense of like, okay, everything is rearranging and everything is changing, and boom, then it like expands into a completely different space.
Yeah.
And I want to really reiterate that it's the staying out of the judgment always that makes it easier on us. Like we are so mean to ourselves, and
yes.
And with money too, like money is one of those areas of life where a lot of people have been abused with money. And I don't mean that in like a dramatic way, but anywhere that your being is invalidated is abuse, basically.
Yeah.
And so if the way that you create money doesn't fit into the context of this reality, it doesn't fit into what someone else has deemed as right, good, perfect, and correct. It doesn't fit into your mom's paradigm, your dad's paradigm, your financial planner's paradigm, your partner's paradigm. If you don't fit, which I certainly do not, any of those, it's like the only person that's going to have your back with the like discovery of your reality and your capacities with money is actually you.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. It's so like,
other people can as well, but you have to be the one to initiate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you have to have your own back no matter what. And to come out of judgment of yourself, or like every time you catch yourself going into judgment, to be willing to just do interesting point of view, like all the fucking time. Yes. Like interesting point of view. I have that point of view for everything that comes up with judgment, I can't talk, of yourself, because otherwise it's like you take yourself 10 steps back, and like, how much do we create from a space of judgment versus a space of like, allowance, for you, and like, what difference would that create in our money flows?
Yeah. Truly. I mean, and this is where the abuse of ourselves comes in, is like, how much do you go to when there's less money, you're wrong, and when there's more money, you're right?
Oh my God. Yeah. Right.
And both of those are an invalidation of you, because both of those tie your worth, but you're like also like your, like the rightness of your being to money. Your being isn't right or wrong. It just is, it's brilliant. It's far beyond right and wrong. It's just brilliant. You are brilliant as a being. But when that gets tied in to money, then all of a sudden, like, you have to gauge your level of receiving of you and your level of like allowance of you. It's dependent upon your money flows, and money is an invention. It's just this created thing that we made up.
Yeah.
There's this Ascent of Money program you can find it on Google, PBS thing. And it's this show where they actually kind of go through like the story of how money was created. It It was just created. Like some people
Wow.
had an idea about money and savings and loans and business and commerce and, borrowing. And it was like, and they just instituted it, and there was the birth of money.
And now we don't use it to judge ourselves.
Well, I know, it's so wild because when you look at that, it's like, well, before that, there wasn't money. Yeah, I mean, there was different types of trade, of course, but it's like that. I mean, how absurd. Like, we are infinite beings. We've been here, we've been around for trillions of years. Like,
Yeah.
And we're determining our, like, worth or, based on this random thing that got created called money. And that's part of what sticks us, is because what's true for you is light for you. What's a lie for you is heavy for you, which is why it can be such a heavy topic for people, because
oh my gosh, right?
you actually, it doesn't really mean much to people that tend to be drawn to these conversations. It's not all that relevant.
No, and it's so interesting. I was talking to a client even earlier today, and she was talking about, like, it's not about the money for me, and I'm not trying to do this to make the money, but it was like how much people actually go in to like over justifying, like how like they're not doing it for the money, or they're not trying to do it, get the money, and it becomes this like, I'm not all about the money because that would be wrong. And so, it's like this right and wrong thing. It's really interesting.
Yeah. Proving that you're not greedy, proving that you don't need money. I mean, oh my God, what if it was just like, I don't actually need money. I can live without it. And I choose to live with it because it's fun. It's fun and easy. It's totally made up. But
Absolutely.
I'm not like, I'm willing to go without it, but I'm also like, not going to choose that, because why would I choose that? Because that would be kind of boring, and it's way more fun to just have it. So I'm just going to have it.
Yeah. But the lightness of like, I want it because it's fun is a totally different energy than I need more money, than that like need, like heaviness is such a different energy than like, I choose to have money. Yeah. Because that's like how I'd like to live my life, because it's more fun, because I can do more things I want to do, but that's such a different energy.
Well, need is heavy because it's a lie.
Yeah.
You are an infinite being. You don't need anything. So whenever you tell yourself that you do, you're lying to yourself, which is why it's heavy.
Yeah.
So, and we try to like handle the need so that we can like get the money to get out of it. But getting out of need is a choice that has nothing to do with money. It has to do with your willingness to choose. That's a story for another time. That's a story for possibilities class. Also coming up in a few days with Brendan Watt.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, actually I had possibilities over the weekend with Simone. So
yeah.
I just finished yesterday.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, and actually Brendan Watt, who's also an access consciousness facilitator, he's doing a money class Friday night in the US. It's included in the COP, the Choice of Possibilities class that he's doing this weekend, but you can also just take it. It's on the Access Consciousness website. So I should mention that, because I'm sure that's going to be good.
Oh yeah, he's a fun person to listen to. I mean, everybody, I suppose, but but Brendan has like a cool story with money. Yeah, so that's really fun. I love that. The other thing, I don't know if it fits in or weaves in or not, but there's just been a lot of like conversations lately about like the like abundance of the earth, and like the way that like we can create like the earth. I'm looking at the lake behind you, and it's just like pulling me towards the lake, and there's like this, even we talk about earth, but like the water and like just the like abundance of that without it having a point of view or judgment. And like, I guess I look at that and like, what like lesson can we take there, like from the earth, of like just not having any judgment or point of view and just being abundant?
Yeah. I mean, this is where questions are great, because what if you asked to create like the earth does, you know, or like just to have, not because you're going to mimic it and give up how you create, but like to perceive what that is. Because, and the beauty of that is, I mean, especially when you talk about need, it's like the earth does not need anything.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't need us to be here. It doesn't need us to be gone. It doesn't need global warming to stop. It doesn't need, it's like there's all this destruction happening on the planet right now, but the earth doesn't really have a point of view about it, right? It's like, because it'll just keep evolving.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And so, but that's this, like, the earth is this like tenacious, like from no point of view, like unwavering, undying organism of creation and evolution and beauty and consciousness, and of course doesn't have a mind.
Right. Right.
You know? So it's like that. I mean, what if creation was like that? What if the creation of money was like that, and it was literally just, okay, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
without that point of view, without that, like the things that stick us, like the earth doesn't do that.
Yeah. I mean, if there's a drought, the earth doesn't decide that it's bad because there's a drought, you know? It's just like, oh yeah, there's no water this year, you know? And the animals know that ahead of time.
Yeah.
You know, they, like, the animals do all these amazing things. The trees do all these amazing things to deal with the upcoming drought that they know is going to happen before it even happens. You know, they adjust. You know, what if we could know that? You know, what if we could have that awareness and function from that, with just going, yeah, you know, some years are drought years and some years are, you know, flood years. And that's just how it goes. And we adjust and we adjust and we adjust.
Yeah, without going into the trauma and drama of it all.
Totally, totally. And, you know, one of the things that people do with money is they try to get like a consistency with their business and money.
I haven't done that at all.
I hear this is something that people do. You know. And it's not true for us. Like, it's not really a reality. It's like the earth, you know, there's going to be like massive rains and droughts and, you know, all the different seasons and cycles. And, you know, it's like, there's still, like, somehow things just keep moving and, you know, organizing themselves in the direction of greater. So what if that was actually available to us as well?
Wow. Yeah, that's such an incredible, like, topic, because I think that is what, I mean, so many people, at least in my world that I'm talking to, are like always trying to have like the consistent amount of money so that they can like budget properly and they can, you know, figure out the numbers and the spreadsheets and I don't know, that never worked for me, but like I keep trying to make it work. And so I just think that's like such an incredible, just like awareness to have, to be willing to like actually step beyond that, and like what's beyond consistency when you're actually like willing to just have awareness.
And to create, and, you know, because we try to use money to create a sense of, well, the consistency, the predictability, but it really like a stability, you know, stability. But that's not a reality. Yeah. Like stability and security is a lie. You know, the only thing that can really provide stability and security is your trust in yourself to create, and your trust in your capacities to create. And when you trust your capacities to create, then you don't need to, you know, you don't need your bank account to be this external proof that you're going to be okay. Because if you look at like very wealthy people in the world, millionaires, billionaires, whatever, they don't, I mean, like billionaires, don't have a sense of ease and security with money.
Right.
It's interesting, you know.
Yeah.
It's still like, gotta make more, gotta create more, you know. And so if large quantities of money did that, then that would be more of a reality for people, you know. It's choice that creates it. Like, what gives you a sense of quote unquote security is your trust and your capacity to create in any situation, which also is very adaptive to what happens with the financial markets. You know, I mean, you know, the United States dollar could plummet. You know, you could have a lot of dollars and the dollars could plummet. You could have a lot of euros and the euros could, you know, currencies change. Values of things change. You know, lots of people have lost in, you know, investments and whatever. There's no guarantee. And so, but what does sort of guarantee in a way, you know, provide that energy is going, it doesn't matter what is going on. I know how to create.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, absolutely. Like having that trust in you. And I think that's where like we all, like so many of us go into like the judgment of us, where like if we were actually willing to step into trusting and that we can always create, that so much of that, I think, sort of uncertainty and like anxiety and like things that come up around money for people, if like they were actually willing to like trust that they are the source of money rather than looking to outside of them, you know, rather than looking for like the job or the paycheck or, you know, anything else other than like, okay, I trust in me that like I can create money with ease, you know, and like what different reality would that actually create for people?
Yeah, very much so. And I'll say, you know, like you may not, you know, people watching, like you may not actually feel like you know how to create. Like that's, you know, and this is where the tools of access have come in for me in such a huge way. And joy of business as well, which is a specialty area in access consciousness. Because creation it's not something that we're actually taught. Like we're taught how to predict and follow structures and follow rules. But when you're different, none of that's going to work for you because it's not relevant. It's not about, like when you're creating in the way that you create, then you're going to have the greatest chance to be successful with it, you know. But when you're close how somebody else does it, it doesn't usually work. So the tools of access and joy of business are so great for giving you a completely different reality with creation that actually works in any circumstances, because it's about asking questions, it's about choice, it's about being empowered to know what you know and create from your awareness, which is something that you can always have more of no matter what's going on in the world. You know?
Yeah, and you know, that rings so true for me. Like if you would have asked me 5 years ago, you know, I've been doing access about 2 years, like, oh, it's a little longer now, but still, time. But I thought you went to school and you got a degree and you went to work and you made the money and there was no creation in any of that. And I never thought of myself as a person who could like create or was like a creative person. And it wasn't until I found access that like, literally people are like, you've changed so much in the last 2 years. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Sorry, not sorry. You know, but it's amazing how like the tools of access have completely like unlocked something that I don't know that I would have ever found any other way. Like just like this creation thing. I'm obviously like still playing with it and I don't think that'll ever stop, but it is something that I certainly did not know was possible until I found access. And so like, I wonder how many other people like hear that and they're like, yeah, I can't create. I don't know what that means. You know, but it was just, you mentioned like money isn't the problem, you are. And that is like a little thin book that like, just changed my whole like reality with money. Yeah. And even like when I started reading it, like just money, but like the energy of money, but the energy of creation, like everything started to like open and change. And like, it's really interesting that you say that, because the tools of access absolutely like can open up this reality that I think most people don't even know that is a possibility for them.
Yeah, totally. Very well said. And I think it's it's so different than what we're taught growing up, but it also is such a I think for so many of us, it's like, oh, like for me, it just felt like coming home of like, oh man, this actually makes so much sense to me. You know, this is what I'm looking for, not knowing I was looking for it, you know. Because I was always like hiring business coaches. I've been in business for myself for, you know, I don't know, 20 some odd years. And I, you know, was always going to the coaches going, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And I would do it and it wouldn't work because it wasn't.
Oh my God, it's like you took that out of my head. Go on.
Yeah. I mean, I remember like you know, started my private practice. I was a psychotherapist. This was in 1997, I think, or something like that. And my coach was, you know, I'd go every week and take all these notes and, you know, and she'd go, now you need to go do this. Now you need to go do this, you know? And I'd be like, I'd go do it. And I'd be like, well, that's not working. You know? It was so frustrating to me. And it wasn't until I found Access, then Joy of Business, and started really putting the tools to work that things really started to take off in a way that I was like, now we're talking, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. You're not aware at all. Like I was like thinking the same thought. Like I had done that too, because I went into like coaching from being a therapist. I'm still a therapist, but like from doing that, and I paid a lot of money for these coaching programs, and same idea, like they just didn't work. And I did all the work like a good little humanoid, and you know, did what I was told to do, like trying to get it right and trying to be perfect. And I did everything and like it wouldn't work. And I'd be like, oh, I, you know, wasted the money on this whole thing. And then somewhere in there, like when I found Access, I was like, well, that's why none of that worked, because I was trying to do money and trying to do business from somebody else's reality, and from like a very like this reality business, and it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny to me now, because people will try to give me like unsolicited business advice and like, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. I'm like, thank you. Interesting point of view. Like I'm so aware that won't actually work for me, because it's not my reality. And but that's something that I'm so grateful that I have, like the Joy of Business tools and like all the tools of Access, just even being willing to ask questions, because it has completely changed the way that I function with money and the way I'm willing to function with money, which is such a different like energy of like being willing to be like, I don't know, let's see what this creates, you know, like.
Totally. And using money to create more money and using money to create a future. I mean, there's so many, like, there's just tons of conversations that we could have that like go into like the energetics of how money actually works. And when you get that and you start to perceive what's true for you and what you know about this, which isn't what I know, and it's not what Melissa knows, but it's what you know. It's not what your dad knows or your mom knows. And even if you're like, I don't have any money, I don't know anything, you do actually, you know? And when you start to get present with that and go, okay, I'm different. I'm not going to function the same way that anybody else does. Now, what would I like to create from here? You know, totally different reality. And it takes a lot of courage to have that conversation, and also to choose to go there with yourself. It takes a lot of courage. And to let go of predictable reality, you know, which isn't really a thing anyway. It doesn't really work anyway. So, but the fruit that is available, you know, the abundance that is available it's pretty amazing. And what we can create it's pretty amazing. And I'm so grateful, because I was never going to create money like my dad did ever, you know, but I made myself so wrong for that. And you know, have parents who have a lot of money. And so I grew up with a lot of money. So I grew up with a lot of, you know, ideas about what was required to, and the right way to be with money and do money. And I was always just like, well, I don't think I'm going to have money because I don't think I can do that, Yeah. So I'm really grateful that, I found this and a different invitation for me to extend to myself every day.
Yeah. Wow.
What's true for me.
Yeah. Wow. Absolutely. Gosh, absolutely. Like, it's just been such a different reality. Like, yeah, I mean, I feel like we could like have another hour-long conversation about like our parents' reality with money, and maybe that's another Facebook Live.
And we are actually, so at the end of December, so every year, this is one of my favorite creations of the year. I've been doing it for, I don't even know, 6-7 years maybe. Every year between Christmas and New Year's, I do a 5 days of creation, 5 calls, 5 days in a row. And I was always very bored that time of year. I'm like, this is like the week where everybody wants to die and they lay on the couch and they overeat and they're depressed, and fuck that. I want to create, So I started doing this thing and people love it. It's like an annual thing and everybody gets excited. So we're doing it this year again. It starts on December 27th and it goes 5 days in a row, an hour a day, boom, boom, boom. We have a Facebook group, all that stuff. And this year, the topic is actually unlocking your capacities with money. So we're going to be playing with this. We're going to be playing with some little X-Men tidbits, weaving that in. And, just going, there's so many places we can go with this conversation. And I'm excited because it's time, the financial landscape has changed so much this year with COVID. I mean, there's just so much massive, change in every way, but financially, it's been a big year of change for people. And I think it's a great thing, actually. I mean, it's really, it's time to really get into what's true for us with money. What are the unique capacities that we have? Because we're not going to go back to anything at this point,
Right.
And again, when you know how to create in a way, and you trust yourself and you're curious about your capacities with money, with creation, and that's your ongoing conversation. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world, you can outcreate it.
Yeah.
So
I'm so excited.
It's $100. Is it $100 or maybe even less? I don't know.
I don't know. I'd have to look.
I don't remember. It's no more than $100.
So everyone should come play because it's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah, I think the link is like, you can find it on my website.
5 days, like heathernichols.com/
5 days.
5. Hold
you
on.
Can find it on my website. It's there. So yeah.
Let's see if that's it.
We can post
there. It does. It's heathernichols.com/ 5 days. 5 like the number 5. And it's $100. You're right.
Cool. Yeah. So $20 a call. I mean, it's for me, for what I do, it's super cheap, really, really cheap. So yeah. So come and play.
Yay. Oh my gosh. This has been such an amazing conversation. Thank you so much, Heather. This has been so much fun. And I wonder what we can all create with money and unlocking sort of like the difference that we truly be with money and business and all of it. And like, as the year ends and like going into 2021, like, I wonder what possibilities will be available now.
Yeah, I'm actually really excited for it. I'm like, wow, it's our time. It's really our time to do something very different, and have a different world that includes having, and I would love for everybody who actually truly desires money to have it with ease. So that's part of the world that I want to live in.
Wow, I love that.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for being here, and hope to see you on the 5 days. And yeah, have fun, whatever you do. Go.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. And thanks, Melissa.
Absolutely. Bye.